Hey everyone, welcome back. In previous videos, we have discussed about what is a lambda expression, the syntax of lambda expression, like what is a function interface, and how we can implement the lambda expression with the help of function interface, and how we can reference it, and how to call the method which was implemented with the help of lambda expression we have discussed. In today's video, we will discuss about default methods and static methods. So, as we all aware, like once if a interface is having an abstract method, the class which is implementing the interface should implement the methods inside the interface. Otherwise, we should declare the class as abstract class. So if we add a new function, new abstract method inside the interface, then automatically all the implementation classes need to be modified, which is not a good idea. So to overcome this challenge, Java has introduced a new feature inside the interfaces, which is nothing but now Java can support the implementation of default methods inside the interface. So what is the main advantage of it is, for an existing interface we can add a new method which is nothing but the default or static method. So all the implementation classes need not to be added. By default, this default method is available to all the implementation classes. If they want, they can override the method and they can implement their own custom logic. So from Java 1.8 onwards, the default methods can be present inside the interface. Until Java 1.7, every method present inside the interface is always a public and abstract. So how we use it to declare? For example, we use it to write like return type and method name and public void method name, or it can be also written as abstract void method name. I'm just here denoting it as void, but it can be of any return type. Just for example sake, just I kept a void and public abstract void method name. We can declare any of this way. So as Java 1.8 has introduced this default and static methods inside this interface, only there is change only in the default and static methods inside the interface. For variables, there is no change. Every variable present inside the interface is always public static final. There is no modification inside the variables. Always public static and final. So clearly we can say like there is no enhancements for variables inside the new versions of Java. No enhancements for variables in interface in new version of Java. That means like 1.8 as we are discussing like. So coming to this default method can also be named as can also be called as defender method or virtual extension method as well. So why we call this as a virtual extension method or default method? Because without affecting the implementation classes, if you want to add a new method to the interface, then we can use these default methods. I think you got it. Like without affecting implementation classes, like which are all classes are implemented, there is no change inside the particular implementation classes. So if we want to add a new method to the interface, then we can use default method. So now let's take an example of default method. For that, we will just open our IDE. So I'm just opening my previously created package. So now I'll create a new package called as default methods. So inside this package, I'll just create a new interface. Just I'll create a name as interface demo. So inside this interface, now I'll create a one default method. Default method demo. So I'll just print out like this is the default method demo. So just I have renamed this method. So now we will implement a class for this interface. Interface demo main. Inside this class we will write our main method. So inside our main method, just we will create interface demo equal to so we just want to implement the interface demo. So now what we can do is we can use this reference for this method. So we have the reference object for the particular interface. I mean, which because this interface is being implemented using the class, so we can reference this class and we can call the particular method. Like this is the normal approach. So we can just directly execute this method. You see here, it is has executed the interface demo default method. So now what we will do is we can override the default method as well. So how we can do is we will close all the tabs as we have discussed it, right? We can override the existing default method as well if we want to change our behavior. So what we can do, we will just override it using the public void default method demo, and inside in this, here we will write overriding and default method demo, but using the interface demo main. So now what we can do, we can again execute the same thing. Now if you see, we are executing this method using our custom implementation override method. So now we should get the this output like overriding interface demo main, as we have overridden the method which is present inside the interface. So whenever we want to override a default method, we should not use a default as a modifier, because default modifier is treated as reserved word. So default is not allowed as a modifier. So methods inside the class will not consider it as a keyword. So here you need to remember one thing is, we should not use, as you observe in our class, we have used the public instead of default. If you write default, you will see the error, like compiler shows the error, because default is allowed only in the interface, not in the class. So here we should not use default as a modifier, because default modifier is treated as reserved word. You are aware, like inside the switch as well, we will use the default for the default case. So default is not allowed as a modifier. For methods inside the class. But for interface, we can use the default for method, but default can be used for methods inside the interface. So whenever we want to override the default method inside the class, we need to change the modifier to public instead of default, because in class default is considered as a reserved word. Like in the switch statement, we have the default keyword. So for the interface, the default modifier is allowed for a method, but for the class, it is not allowed while overriding the abstract method. Sorry, default method.